after being divorced by her algorithm king husband for his 99.9% statistical match, a scorched co-founder launches a rival dating app designed to expose tech bro cheaters, only to find herself beta testing a romance with her ex's greatest professional rival. The math isn't personal, Mia, it's just objective. Niall adjusted his $5,000 titanium-rimmed glasses and tapped a finger against the crystal-clear surface of his tablet. Between them sat 2 plates of deconstructed Wagyu beef that looked more like an art installation than an anniversary dinner. Mia paused, her fork hovering over a single, perfectly placed microgreen. The math? Niall, it's our 5th anniversary. We're at l'alchimie. People usually talk about vacations or, I don't know, the fact that I finally got the garden finished. What math? Niall didn't look up. He swiped left on a series of colorful heat maps. I ran a compatibility diagnostic on our marriage this afternoon. I used the new Soulmate 2.0 kernel, the one you helped me bridge last month. It's significantly more accurate than the 1.0 version we used when we got engaged. Mia felt a cold prickle of dread at the base of her neck. She had spent 6 months coding the empathy response subroutines for that kernel. She knew exactly how accurate it was. And, she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. And we've hit a regression, Niall said, finally meeting her eyes. His expression wasn't one of sadness or anger. It was the look of a man explaining why a stock trade had gone slightly sideways. In the last 18 months, our conversational synergy has dropped by 18%. Our shared goal alignment is down 30%. On a scale of 1 to 100, the algorithm has downgraded our marriage to a 42. A 42? Mia repeated. She looked around the restaurant. At the next table, a tech mogul was feeding his date a spoonful of gold leaf foam. Everything felt absurd. Niall, I'm not a software update. I'm your wife. Exactly, Niall said, leaning forward. And as my wife, you should appreciate the efficiency of this. Why spend the next 40 years in a suboptimal partnership when the data clearly indicates a better path? The algorithm found a golden ratio match for me this morning. 99.9% compatibility. It's statistically impossible to ignore. Mia felt the air leave the room. The steak in her stomach felt like lead. 99.9%? Who is she, Niall? A ghost in the machine? A Russian bot? Niall cleared his throat and checked a notification on his watch. It's Kiki from the branding department. Kiki? Mia's laugh was sharp and jagged. Kiki is 22. She thinks coding is something you do to a secret diary. She wears neon pink blazers and calls herself a chief vibe officer.
The algorithm doesn't care about blazers, Mia. It cares about biometric resonance and predictive lifestyle habits. She optimizes me. He reached across the table, not to take her hand, but to slide a sleek, silver folder toward her. I've already had the legal team draft the dissolution papers. Based on our prenup, I'm offering you a very generous legacy exit package. $5 million, the condo in Aspen, and a consultant title for the next 2 years, so your vesting remains intact. Mia looked down at the folder. The Soulmate logo, a heart entwined with a fiber optic cable, glowed mockingly on the cover. A legacy exit, she whispered. You're laying me off from my own life. I'm liberating you, Niall corrected, standing up. He didn't wait for her to respond. He had a flight to catch to Cabo, likely with the chief vibe officer. Don't be emotional, Mia. It's just data. And the data says we're over. He walked away, his stride perfectly calculated, leaving her with a cold dinner, a 42% rating, and a folder full of papers that treated her heart like a depreciating asset. Mia didn't cry. Instead, she picked up her phone. She didn't call a lawyer. She opened the back-end server logs for Soulmate 2.0. If Niall wanted to live by the algorithm, she was going to make sure the algorithm destroyed him. 3 weeks later, Mia Vance was sitting in a booth at the Binary Bucket, a dive bar that smelled predominantly of stale hops and overheated server racks. It was the kind of place where billionaires went to look relatable, and junior developers went to weep into overpriced IPAs. Mia was doing neither. She was currently staring at a line of code on her laptop that looked like a digital middle finger. Another? The bartender asked, pointing at her empty glass of tequila. Make it a double, Mia said without looking up. And subtract the low-carb lime. I'm leaning into suboptimal life choices tonight. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Soulmate CEO Niall and Chief Vibe Officer. Kiki seen canoodling in Ibiza. Stock up 4% on true love narrative. Mia's jaw tightened. Niall wasn't just moving on. He was using their divorce as a marketing case study for the 2.0 launch. He was selling his betrayal as the ultimate optimization. That's a lot of scowling for a woman with a 9-figure settlement. A voice rumbled from the stool next to her. Mia didn't turn. It's a 5-figure scowl. The rest of the money is tied up in a trust that I'm currently trying to weaponize. The man laughed. It wasn't a curated boardroom laugh. It was a loud, gravelly sound that seemed to vibrate the ice in her glass. Mia finally looked over. He was wearing a wrinkled navy blazer over a black t-shirt that said, "I survived the dot-com bubble and all I got was this crappy governance." He had dark, messy hair and a jawline that looked like it had been carved out of granite by someone who didn't care about being aesthetic. "Leo Sterling," he said, extending a hand. "I've been following your work. Or rather, I've been following the way you haven't burned Niall's house down yet. I'm impressed by your restraint." Mia blinked. Leo Sterling, the man the tech blogs called the Chaos King, he was the only VC in the Valley who refused to use data-driven projections. He invested in founders with a glint of madness in their eyes. "I don't do restraint, Mr. Sterling," Mia said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm and warm, a sharp contrast to Niall's perpetually cold, sanitized palms. "I do high-latency retaliation. It takes time to build a platform that destroys a man's entire worldview." Leo leaned in, his eyes bright with interest. "Tell me you're building a competitor. Tell me you're going to kick the algorithm king off his throne." "Better," Mia whispered, turning her laptop toward him. "Soulmate is built on the lie that people are puzzles with missing pieces. I'm building Ghosted. It's not about finding the one. It's a public ledger of every man who uses an algorithm to lie to women. It's a Yelp for dating, powered by the women Niall's app considers statistically insignificant." Leo looked at the screen. He saw a map of San Francisco dotted with red pins. Each pin represented a Soulmate user. When he clicked one, a profile popped up. Mark, 32, claims he's a feminist. Ghosted 3 women in 1 week after a 98% match. "It's a revenge app," Leo said, a slow grin spreading across his face. "It's a transparency tool," Mia corrected. "Niall thinks he can optimize human connection. I'm going to show him that you can't hide a personality defect behind a 99% compatibility score." Leo tapped his fingers on the bar. "The tech is solid. The spite is world-class. But you're missing something, Vance." "What?" "A face. Niall is selling a fairy tale. You're selling a horror story. If you want people to buy in, they need to see the woman who survived the perfect match and came out the other side. You need to be the hero of this narrative." Mia recoiled. "I'm a coder. I stay behind the keyboard. I don't do faces." "Then you've already lost," Leo said, standing up. "Niall is out there telling the world you were a 42. If you don't show them you're a 100, they'll believe him." He slid a business card across the sticky wood. It wasn't embossed. It was a piece of recycled cardboard with a phone number scribbled in Sharpie. "Call me tomorrow," Leo said. "We'll launch the beta. We'll do a press tour. And just to really twist the knife in Niall's gut, we'll tell everyone that we're the ones who are dating." Mia stared at the card. "You want to fake date me? To prove a point?" Leo winked. "The algorithm says we're a 0% match. Mia, I'm an investor who hates math, and you're a mathematician who hates men. It's the perfect PR disaster. Niall will lose his mind." The red carpet for the Silicon. Vanguard Gala was a sea of sensible gray wool and disruptive sneakers. It was the kind of event where Niall felt like a god, a temple built to celebrate the cold, hard logic of venture capital. Mia stood in the back of a Blacktown car, smoothing out the wrinkles in a dress that cost more than her first car. It was vengeance, green, an emerald silk that clung to her in ways that made her feel less like a coder and more like a tactical weapon. "You look like you're heading to an execution," Leo said from the seat beside her. He was wrestling with a tuxedo tie that looked like it had lost a fight with a vacuum cleaner. "Relax, we're supposed to be infatuated, not indicted." "Niall is going to be there, Leo. With her," Mia said. her fingers drumming a frantic rhythm on her clutch. The algorithm says they are a golden ratio match. They're probably sharing a synchronized heartbeat by now. Leo reached over and stilling her hand. His skin was warm, and for a second, the frantic coding in Mia's brain stalled. Niall's algorithm measures data points. Mia, it doesn't measure the way someone looks at you when you've just said something incredibly nerdy and brilliant. It's a spreadsheet. We're a riot. The door opened. Flashbulbs detonated like digital landmines. Leo stepped out first, offering a hand with a flourish that was entirely too charming for a man who claimed to hate the spotlight. As Mia stepped onto the pavement, he tucked her arm firmly against his side. Smile, he whispered into her ear, his breath tickling her neck. The servers are watching. They hadn't made it 10 feet before the first reporter intercepted them. Mia Vance, is it true? The woman who built Soulmate is now dating the man who tried to short its stock. We prefer to call it diversifying the portfolio. Leo said, flashing a grin that was pure predator. He pulled Mia closer, his hand resting on the small of her back. Besides, I've always preferred high-risk, high-reward assets. Mia leaned into him, playing the part. It turns out some things are better when they aren't optimized. And then she saw him. Niall was standing near the entrance, looking like a mannequin carved from ice. Beside him, Kiki was draped in a neon pink gown that looked like a highlighter exploded. They were the picture of perfect. Compatibility. Their heights were complementary, their smiles were mirrored, and they both looked incredibly bored. Niall's eyes locked onto Mia. His composure didn't break, but his grip on his champagne flute tightened until his knuckles turned white. Niall, Mia said, stepping into his personal space with Leo in tow. I don't believe you've met my lead investor. And my personal consultant. Niall's gaze raked over Leo's messy hair and slightly crooked tie. Leo Sterling, I see you're still investing in distressed assets. I don't know, Niall, Leo said, looking down at Mia with an expression that was terrifyingly convincing. I've never seen an asset look less distressed in my life. You look like you've lost some weight, though. Is the 99.9% match putting you on a data-driven diet? Kiki giggled, a high tinkling sound. Actually, the app suggested a keto intermittent fasting hybrid. For our collective metabolic health. It's so efficient. Mia felt a wave of pity for the girl, but it was quickly drowned out by the sheer satisfaction of seeing the twitch in Niall's jaw. Efficiency is great for machines, Kiki, Mia said sweetly. But Leo and I, we stayed up until 3 a.m., eating cold pizza and arguing about the heat death of the universe. The algorithm would have hated it. We loved it. Niall stepped closer, his voice a low hiss intended only for Mia. This is a pathetic stunt. Mia, you're a 42. You're trying to A/B test a personality by hanging onto a man who treats his board meetings like bar fights. It won't work. The math always wins. The math is about to get a virus, Niall, Mia whispered back. Just then the gala's giant digital display, usually reserved for stock tickers, flickered. It was the first soft launch of the ghosted beta. A giant red notification appeared. User alert, Niall, Soulmate CEO. Status, golden ratio match. Community review, uses data to avoid feelings. Once dumped a wife at dinner for a 22-year-old in a pink dress. Rating 0/110. The room went silent. Every phone in the ballroom chimed in unison as the ghosted notification hit the local geofence. Niall looked at the screen, then at his phone, then at Mia. His face went from pale to a deep digital purple. You, he gasped. Me, Mia said, taking a sip of Leo's champagne. By the way, Leo, I think we should go get that pizza. This party is starting to feel a little suboptimal. As they turned to walk away, Leo let out a low whistle. That was cold, Vance, incredibly cold. Did you hate it? She asked, her heart hammering against her ribs. Leo looked at her, his eyes dark and unreadable for the first time that night. I think I'm starting to realize that the algorithm was wrong. About one thing. What's that? The 0% match, he said, his voice dropping an octave. Because that was the most attractive thing I've ever seen in my life. The morning after the gala, the tech world didn't just wake up. It suffered a collective system crash. Mia's phone was a glowing brick of notifications. Ghosted had reached 1.2 million downloads in 6 hours. It was the #1 app in the lifestyle category, sitting right above Soulmate, which was currently plummeting toward the earth like a lead balloon. "You're trending," Leo said, kicking the door to Mia's makeshift war room open. He was carrying 2 paper bags that smelled heavenly of grease and yeast. And not the cute cat video kind of trending. The holy crap, she actually did it kind. Mia didn't look up from her 3-monitor setup. Her hair was in a bun that looked more like a bird's nest, and she was wearing a hoodie that had definitely seen better decades. "The server load is at 98%. I'm rerouting traffic through a decentralized cloud just to keep the review section from melting. Women are uploading screenshots of Niall's optimization, texts from 3 years ago. It's a data massacre, Leo." Leo set the breakfast sandwiches down. "Eat. You can't dismantle an empire on an empty stomach. Also, you might want to check the front door." "Why?" "Because a man in a very expensive suit just tried to serve me with a stack of papers thick enough to be a booster seat." Mia finally spun around. "He's suing?" "Big time," Leo grinned, pulling a legal document from his jacket. "Niall vs. Vance, algorithm defamation and tortious interference. He's claiming that by calling him a 0.1 out of 10, you've caused irreparable harm to the integrity of the Soulmate brand." Mia snatched the papers, scanning the legalese. "Integrity? The man treats human beings like rows in a CSV file. He can't sue me for people telling the truth." "He can in a world where he owns the judge's golf club memberships," Leo said, his expression softening. He leaned against the desk, looking at the lines of code. "He's scared, Mia. For the first time in his life, he's encountered a variable he can't predict. You." A sharp, rhythmic knocking echoed through the house. Not the polite knock of a neighbor, but the aggressive, "I have more lawyers than you," pounding of a billionaire in crisis. Mia stood up, straightening her hoodie. Speaking of the variable, she opened the door to find Niall standing on her porch. He wasn't wearing his usual perfectly tailored suit. He was in a tactical-looking turtleneck, and his hair was just slightly out of place. Behind him, a black SUV sat idling, likely filled with more lawyers. "Take it down, Mia," Niall said, bypassing a greeting entirely. "Now." "Good morning to you too, Niall. Would you like a breakfast burrito?" Leo brought extras. Niall's eyes darted into the house, landing on Leo, who waved a half-eaten bagel with irritating cheerfulness. Niall's jaw tightened. "You're playing a dangerous game. You're using my own geolocation patents to facilitate a smear campaign. I'll have your assets frozen by noon." "Actually," Mia said, leaning against the doorframe, "I'm using my patents, the ones I filed during our suboptimal 3rd year when you were too busy optimizing your golf swing to notice I was doing all the heavy lifting in the R&D department. The algorithm is intellectual property." Niall stepped closer, his voice dropping. "People need Soulmate. It provides order. It prevents the mess of human error. You're giving people a platform to be messy." "That's the point, Niall," Mia said. "Life is messy. Love is a disaster, and you? You're a 0.1, because you think you can solve a heart like a Sudoku puzzle. The algorithm defamation suit? Go ahead, I'll discovery phase. You into the Stone Age. I'll have every one of your private logs read aloud in open court." Niall looked at her, and for a fleeting second, the algorithm king looked humanly, pathetically panicked. "I gave you everything, Mia, the condo, the title." "You gave me a legacy exit," she reminded him. "Well, this is my legacy. Welcome to the era of the ghost." She slammed the door in his face. The silence that followed was broken by Leo's low whistle. "Man, I really wish I'd filmed that." "The algorithm defamation?" Suit just became the best marketing campaign we never paid for. Mia turned back to him, the adrenaline beginning to fade, replaced by something else. "He's not going to stop, Leo. He'll try to buy the app. Or buy the servers. Or buy you." Leo walked over, stopping just inches from her. He reached out, his thumb brushing a smudge of ink off her cheek. "He can't afford me." "Mia, I've already invested everything I have into the 0% match." The air in the room shifted. The fake part of their partnership felt like it was glitching out, replaced by a very real, very unoptimized tension. Leo, Mia whispered. The data says this is a bad idea. Then let's be the biggest mistake we ever made, he replied. He leaned in, and just as their lips were about to meet, Mia's computer let out a deafening, high-pitched siren, the alert she'd set for a Tier 1 security breach. Niall, Leo groaned. Mia scrambled to the monitors, her fingers flying across the keys. Worse, he's not suing anymore. He's launched a counterpatch. He's trying to sync Soulmate and Ghosted to force merge the databases. If he does that, he'll unmask every anonymous reviewer on my app. He's going to dox his own customers' ex-wives? Leo asked, horrified. He's going to start a war, Mia said, her eyes reflecting the scrolling green code. And I'm going to end it. Leo, get your car. We're going to the server farm. The war van smelled like burnt espresso and high-performance cooling fans. Mia's fingers were a blur across her mechanical keyboard, the rhythmic clack-clack-clack sounding like a firing squad. He's desperate, Mia muttered, her eyes reflecting the cascading green logs of the Ghosted backend. Niall isn't just trying to shut us down anymore. He's initiated the merge. He's trying to force sync our user IDs with Soulmate's encrypted profiles. Leo was in the driver's seat, white-knuckling the steering wheel as he dodged a delivery drone in the Soma district. Speak English, Mia. What happens if he hits 100%? If he merges the databases, the anonymity of Ghosted evaporates. Every woman who posted a review about a cheating CEO, every whistleblower who shared a screenshot of a Soulmate, predator, Niall will have their real names, their GPS history, their home addresses. He'll frame it as a security patch, but it's a doxing bomb. How long do we have? Leo asked, swerving onto the 101. The progress bar is at 74%, Mia said, her voice tight. I can't stop it remotely. He's using a physical override from the Soulmate mainframes. He's locked himself in the server room. Leo, he's literally sitting on the data. Leo checked the rearview mirror. Behind them, a sleek black SUV, Niall's security detail, was weaving through traffic. He's not the only one who can play dirty. Where are the servers? The Iron Vault in Santa Clara. It's a Tier 4 data center. It's built to survive a nuclear strike, let alone a scorned ex-wife. Good thing I'm not just a pretty face with a kale smoothie, Leo said, a dangerous glint in his eye. I have a minority stake in the power grid that feeds that block. I can't cut the power. The backups would kick in, but I can create a frequency spike. That'll force their cooling systems to reboot. If the cooling reboots, the servers will throttle to prevent a meltdown. Mia realized, her eyes widening. It'll buy me a 5-minute window to bypass the admin lock. Leo pulled his phone out and tapped a single red button on a custom app. Spiking the grid in 3, 2, 1. In the distance, the lights of the Silicon Valley skyline flickered. The server room was a cathedral of blinking blue lights and a deafening, white noise hum. Niall stood at the central console, his face illuminated by the progress bar. 91%. Almost there, Niall whispered to the empty room. Order will be restored. Data doesn't lie. Suddenly, the hum changed. The high-pitched whine of the cooling fans died into a low, mechanical groan. A red light began to strobe. Warning. Thermal overload. System throttling. What? Niall pounded the console. Override. Ignore thermal limits. I'm afraid the hardware has a mind of its own. Niall! A voice echoed through the server racks. Niall spun around. Mia stood at the end of the aisle, holding a handheld terminal plugged into a bypass port. Behind her, Leo leaned against a rack of blinking hard drives, looking entirely too comfortable in a high-security facility. Mia, Niall hissed, you're trespassing. I'll have you in a cell by morning. Check the clock, Niall, Mia said, her fingers dancing over her terminal. Your merge just dropped to 0.5 kbps. The servers are too hot to think. But my script? My script is lightweight. It's elegant. It's everything you told me I wasn't. You're destroying a billion-dollar company for a grudge. I'm saving 1 million women from a man who thinks they're data points. Mia shouted back. I'm not the 42% anymore. Niall, I'm the system crash you never saw coming. With a final decisive keystroke, Mia hit enter. The giant screen in the room turned white. The progress bar vanished, replaced by a single, pixelated image of a ghost wearing a crown. Processed. All user data anonymized. Encryption keys deleted. Niall slumped against the console. The algorithm king looked small, surrounded by the cooling shells of his empire. The merge was dead. The data was gone. He had nothing left to hold over her. The math failed, Niall, Leo said, stepping forward and placing a hand on Mia's shoulder. You forgot to account for the chaos. Niall looked up, his eyes landing on Leo's hand. She'll leave you too, Sterling. Eventually, the novelty of messy wears off. She'll find a bug in you, and she'll patch you out. Mia didn't look at Niall. She looked up at Leo, the man who had risked his reputation, his grid access, and his calm life just to help her burn a bridge that needed burning. Actually, Mia said softly, I think I'm done with patches. I think I'm going to stay in beta for a while. As the security alarms began to wail, signaling the arrival of the police, Leo grabbed Mia's hand. Ready for the grand exit? He asked. Is it optimized? She joked. Not even a little bit. They ran out of the cooling room and into the crisp night air, leaving the king of data alone in the dark. 6 months later, the Silicon Valley scandal of the century had settled into something far more interesting, a cultural shift. Soulmate was still around, but it had rebranded as a boring utility app for finding roommates and bridge partners. The magic and the ego was gone. Niall had pivoted to a secluded estate in New Zealand where he reportedly spent his days trying to optimize the growth rate of organic kale. Nobody missed him. Mia, meanwhile, sat in a tiny, sunlight-drenched office in the Mission District. The walls weren't glass. They were covered in sticky notes, Polaroids, and sketches. Ghosted was no longer just a revenge app. It had evolved into Vibe Check, a community-led platform where the only algorithm was human intuition. The server costs are down, the user engagement is up, and we just got a 1-star review from a man who says we ruined his ability to lead a double life, Leo said, strolling into the room with 2 cardboard coffee cups. He looked different. The navy blazers had been traded for soft flannels, and he looked like he'd actually slept more than 4 hours. I'll frame that one, Mia said, spinning her chair around. She wasn't wearing a vengeance green dress or a tactical hoodie. She wore a simple t-shirt and a smile that didn't need to be A/B tested. Happy anniversary, Leo said, handing her a coffee. It's not our anniversary. Leo, we've only been officially dating for 4 months. I'm counting from the moment you slammed the door in Niall's face, he countered. That was the most romantic thing I've ever seen. It deserves a celebration. He led her out of the office to a small local taco truck parked on a corner. There were no reservations, no data-driven flights of wine, just the smell of cilantro, the sound of a nearby street performer playing a slightly out-of-tune guitar, and the chaotic energy of the city. As they sat on a curb eating tacos, Mia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. It was an old, automated notification from a dormant account, a legacy, ping from the original Soulmate, code she'd never fully deleted, system notification, user Leo Sterling, compatibility with Mia Vance, 0.0%. Advice, avoid contact, total systemic incompatibility detected. Mia looked at the screen, then at Leo, who was currently laughing so hard at a joke, he'd told himself that he had salsa on his chin. He was unpredictable, he was stubborn, and he never once tried to optimize her. What is it? Leo asked, wiping his face with a napkin. Niall trying to hack us from his kale farm? No, Mia said, sliding the phone into her pocket. Just a reminder that some systems are built to be broken. She leaned over and kissed him, a kiss that was messy, uncalculated, and a perfect 100%. The end. I hope you enjoyed this journey from legacy exit to vibe check. Is there anything else you'd like to explore in this world? Or perhaps a different trope you'd like to dive into next?